Into some op-ed pieces which will in part cover some of the intel we just covered. Now, I've just briefly flicked through the MeWe chat, and it's the same thing. Everyone's asking the same thing. Why no arrests? Why are the clowns still walking around? And these are valid questions to ask, and quite frankly a source of frustration amongst us all, and in particular the people connected with Q, who seem to be losing a bit of faith in the trust the plan. The problem is they don't know the plan. Neither should they at this point. This is war after all, and not for internet people in general to know intimate details or plans. The key for the people on the internet is to unlearn the lies and support the people taking these clans on. So why no arrests? Well, it's fairly simple for those in THI, as you all know the depth of the system of control, and it kind of goes way beyond government, and I mean way beyond. We have a cancer in this country in all kinds of hidden realms, hidden people, hidden groups, hidden mercenaries, etc. The deep state, as it's known, has punctuated into every government department, every agency, hierarchy of the military, and also the Pentagon. The Nazi element that was run from 1947 onwards, although there is evidence of their involvement here long before Project Paperclip. They have placed people in all the top positions in every single department, including local government. And then you add in the AIPAC Zionist crew also. These all have to be cleared out before any real justice, arrests, or any people-based policies can be implemented, like sovereignty. They'll just block it. You've seen how they operate. You can't even get a budget based on American people's security. No, they're not interested in that. They want to carry on child trafficking and adrenochrome and all kinds of other torturous things done to children via the southern border. Say person X has committed a crime, or several. Who investigates them? The CIA? FBI? Military-led tribunals? How can we when all three of them are riddled with anti-American agents? Look at how they've handled the fake Russian collusion investigation. It's not an investigation at all. It's just a delaying tactic and a witch hunt to find the most tenuous links to Russia they can find and hope it sticks, ignoring that the CIA and the KGB have been working together under Five Eyes for the last 70 years. Also ignoring the elephant in the room, like Obama, Hillary, Comey and Mnuchin selling American resources off to Russia. Go figure. And uranium in particular, which was to be funneled into Iran. Yes, the same Iran, you know, the one that tell us that country's all so evil and is a terrorist state. The Russians, they're evil and are coming to get us. And those four and others sold them fusionable weapons materials. Hello, McFly. Then person X goes into a court. Do you really think that trial will be done fair and justice will prevail as it stands? And the whole justice system was riddled with the same anti-justice clowns. All paid agents of the deep state, and let's keep the status quo, of one rule for the people and one rule for them. And that rule is they are immune from prosecution, no matter what crimes they commit, under their constitution, not our constitution. That's what we're operating under, their constitution, not ours. This is the reality. Some will say, well, Trump could get a team around him. But would he or you know who you can trust? With 5 factions, different coloured dragon groups, AIPAC, all chiming in the ear, the bankers, the Rothschilds, you name it. In a theatre riddled by corruption, backstabbers, double agents, triple agents, the threatened or the frightened individuals, or people going along with the old system because they're terrified their own criminality will all get exposed. Or they're just worried about their own paychecks. So this is a sample of the field of operation that Trump is currently working within. And that's just one aspect of it. So when you ask, where are the arrests? Perhaps that gives you a better understanding of what we're actually dealing with here. It's staggering. Not only in this country, but globally. Trump this week turned round and said, I never thought I'd say this, but I think John Roberts Fox and Gillian Turner at Fox News have even less understanding of the war negotiations than the folks at the fake news at CNN and NBC. In stepped the journalists, so-called journalists anyway. This is not right, Mr. Trump. I stand by my colleagues John Roberts and Gillian Turner. They don't deserve this. No reporter does, really. And according to this particular spokesperson, they are just doing their jobs and reporting the facts. Comedy act as well, reporting the facts. Oh my. He went on, they are not opinion journalists and deserve the respect from the White House they cover. Bullying journalists is not a presidential act, they cried. Oh my. 1, they're not journalists, period. Real journalists investigate all stories, not become a one-sided agency script reader. 2, if you're going to talk shite all day about a certain person, eventually that person will respond back. And if you don't like it, perhaps you need to change the script. This is a classic case of flip-flopping. The real bullies blame the other to deflect their own behaviours. You've seen it many times in the mainstream media. And it just goes on. But Trump's in trouble. And I hope the people around him pass this on. I'm sure they will. So Trump ended the government shutdown and the media rhetoric ramped up further. Trump sold out, Trump's this, Trump's that. Oblivious to the real issues at hand, but fully aware of their role in distorting the truth and allowing criminals to reign free and roam amongst us. Allowing known criminals to continue to run this country into the ground and allowing anti-American mouthpieces to proliferate their dirge and diatribe with no cross-questioning whatsoever, or even asking them to prove the complete bullshittery that they're spitting out of their mouths. Just goes unhindered. But Trump can't do right from wrong. He goes to a funeral. He got criticised. He doesn't go to a funeral. He got criticised. And the same applies to official meetings. If he goes, he gets criticised. If he doesn't, he also gets criticised. Doesn't apply to a Pelosi, does it? Didn't apply to Anne or Obama. But why hasn't the media reported some really juicy scoops on their airwaves? Heaven knows they really need to do something to keep on air. Their numbers are plummeting faster than Stormy Daniels' knickers have. Let's be honest. How about the biggest story in the past 8 months? Like the SSP, Secret Space Program, firing a missile from American soil at Air Force One. Did they report that? No, crickets. Or how about Pelosi and Schumer planning a 9/11 on the Capitol building from Puerto Rico in a plot to make the old bag the president? Nope, again, crickets. Or how about the $105 billion injection of funds into a bankrupt country to fix all the people's homes and infrastructure in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, North and South Carolina and California, which was blocked by Hillary, Mnuchin and Citadel. Also, Vice Security, German Vice, WEISS, mercenary group inside the Treasury. Did they report that? No, crickets again. Or why a certain general wanted and tried personally to take out Trump recently. Oops. Or ask why the NYPD, which is run by Citadel, I might add, won't testify or release the child face skinning video done by Hillary and her lesbian partner Huma Abedin. Or ask why Pelosi's security is so vital for her and her entourage for a trip, but not the American people. Or ask why 900,000 children in America go permanently missing each year. Or why do they ask for Trump's tax records and ignore Obama has no records whatsoever? Or ignore the fact that he's not even an American citizen? Why haven't they covered the bills HR 24, HR 25 and HR 204? Simple. These portal people acting as fake journalists all took the blood money to spout lies, distortions, complete delusion, confusion and agency or deep state scripted propaganda. That is all so far from reality it's not even funny anymore. But a warning to Mr. Trump, you need to start spitting out in public or on tweets the above facts just laid out. If you don't, these treasonous turds will swamp you. Stand up and speak out. Enough of us have your back. Defensive tweets are fine. We need attacking tweets now or attacking speeches. You are losing the media war, no matter how fake they are. Call all the above out, please. I said back in 2013, we have two problems in this country, the military and the media. We the people can do more against these clowns, just shut them down. They are the main reason so many in this country talk out of their ass. They have been educated, not taught. Riddled with drama-laden BS, while so many in the country and others suffer. And I keep asking it, but it's way past time the whole of the alt media got under these people's skins. The portal people. Get under their skin and make them feel as uncomfortable as we do when we hear them. Every time they open their shite-filled pie holes. I don't care if one or two on CNN, or more in particular, one or two work for Fox, are okay. If they had any real gumption, they would walk away from them and call them out. It's taken blood money. Every news media presenter are a blight on humanity and beyond reproach, in my opinion. Occasionally they put people on their shows, you've all seen them, some people who talk common sense. Then the blonde clones that are on every single channel jump in and shut them down, or just talk over them so they can't speak. Is that journalism or open debate? No. It's utter vacuous cretins with zero minds of their own who rely on B-movie script writers to portray their opinions, because they have none. We the people are not interested in their opinions, as their viewing figures now show. It's time to end their opinions once and for all, and add in the clowns on the catastrophic Fear and Doom channel, also known as the Weather Channel, as in we don't know whether or whether you're all going to die today or tomorrow channel. Shut them down. Next item, Hurricane Michael cast a path through Southeast America 3 months ago next week. And in response to Emily Mahoney of Miami Herald and the Tampa Bay Times, Catherine Vaughn, who wrote an article in respective newspapers this week asking why there is little to no response via FEMA, or questioning why there was low donations sent in for the disaster relief. To those people, I'll tell you why. Let's see if you can write the real truth, because here it is. FEMA has no money. They're waiting for the Rothschilds. The government has no money. They're being told to wait for the Rothschilds. Only Kim and the Manor World Holding Trust is keeping it open. FEMA has no intentions of spending money on those areas, even if they had the money. It's not part of the plan. The government has agreed a $105 billion disaster relief fund from the Manor World Holding Trust to put back together again all those affected states. The funds were available to go in November after due diligence was done on the provider of the funds, Manor World Holding Trust, which was approved by Homeland Security, the US Treasury, the American government, and also the respective government departments. Mr. Trump signed off on it and made arrangements with the US Treasury to facilitate the use of government cards, to which then the Manor World Holding Trust and Kim would load those cards to the tune of $105 billion, and the repairs were about to go. We who are working with the trust, and myself included, took part in, spent many hours over a few weeks preparing to launch the disaster relief. We had temporary housing arranged, thousands of generators arranged, trucks of all kinds and all kinds of other equipment all prepared to launch. And what happened next should not only alarm Emily Mahoney of the Miami Herald and the Tampa Bay Times correspondent Catherine Vaughn, but every single American. The ambassador for the Manor World Holding Trust went into the Treasury to collect the cards for loading the funds. As he was receiving the cards, the so-called security agents representing Citadel, New York, and its subsidiary of Vice Security, who are a spin-off of Citadel, approached the ambassador and proceeded to escort him out of the building. The Treasury people tried to stop it and stated he has theirs and the President's authority to be in the building, and the security guards essentially told them they don't care about their authority or what Mr. Trump says, and removed him from the building. Hence, we still have no repairs underway. Like I've said earlier, this was all ordered by Hillary Clinton and Steven Mnuchin. Neither of those are helping America, and both are working on behalf of the Rothschilds family and what is known as the deep state. These groups are holding this country to ransom, and have been doing for numbers of years. And unless you people operating as journalists start to write the real truth, millions of Americans are going to continue to suffer like those who have in Hurricane Michael and other storms. Like the people in Louisiana after Katrina, which is now 13 years ago, and about 5% have gone back. 5%, even if it's double and 10. Why isn't it 100%? Because they didn't want them back, and they don't want them back in certain areas of Florida, or certain areas of Georgia, or certain areas of North and South Carolina either. Like they don't want certain people in certain regions of California. So, Emily Mahoney and Catherine Vaughn, do you want to continue to write BS all of your lives, or do you want a scoop for you and your paper? If you want the scoop, write to me at truth.honour.and.integrity@gmail.com for further details. Should you have the gumption and the real honour to fight for your people in this country. Next item, in the light of Brexit, which in my opinion, and I said it at the time, was Baron Rothschild's exit, BR. Not British exit, Baron Rothschild's exit, where the Rothschilds were transferring all power and wealth to the East and forcing the West into bankruptcy. That's how it was going to work, so they thought. Think about it. Since when have the establishment really allowed the public any real say in politics? Oh, but we have a general election, Thomas. It's fixed. They choose. And even if you have a general election and the votes are counted correctly, are they your choices? Are they your choices? No, they're the choices that they put forward for you to vote on. So we never really have a real say in politics, like never. So the fact that they allowed this vote to go ahead means it was done with a hidden intention, does it not? Comes more clearer. I warned of that on the night of that particular election. So of course things haven't gone too well for Baron Rothschilds and the transfer to the East, courtesy of the Trust and others, which is why he tried to get back in control of the UK just over 12 months ago. Hence the delay or a new vote, which will overturn the first vote. You can guarantee that. They'll make sure of that. And the BR exit, Brexit, becomes BR entrance again. And that slimy snake of a family who always hedges all bets so they win, which is why they are backing all the 5 factions. Maybe the 5 factions can pair together with their single brain cells and come up with one head of common sense between them and realise this clown family is playing you all. It's played Britain for fools, it's played America for fools, and every other country. Here, have fake titles, king this and Pindar that, false promises and fake portrayals of riches that will never materialise. They never do. And perhaps they should eliminate those harvesting and raping clowns out of society once and for all. Next item. This is a bit of a repeat from OIM, but not everyone was aware that we were on OIM, or I was anyway, on Sunday. And I've added a bit more to it. But there was a guy who's very knowledgeable. I don't want to, no intentions of running their guest down. He put his information across rather well. But there's a problem when you are blaming X and Y for the ills when it's really A and B. It negates all the compiling of data that you've got when you're going after the wrong one. And they do this often, sleight of hand. And during the show, he mentioned that about the Pope. But the Pope has never had the right to declare anyone sovereign, ever. The Pope is a sub-sovereign to the master sovereign of the trust, which was Marduk, it's now Kim. Only they can declare sovereignty. Well, now Marduk is now gone, only Kim can declare sovereignty. Now, he mentioned about the Queen. She is a sovereign. But the Queen, as the guy mentioned in the show, does not own the crown. It's the Rothschilds and their ilk, which is why the Queen has to have special permission to enter that region, known as the Square Mile, the Temple Bar, etc. But the gist of his piece was based on Irish history and the Constitution, and all of Ireland's ills were down to Britain and the Queen, except that's not correct. It goes back to 1215, King John and the Magna Carta. And King John sold all of the British subjects out. And the king, after that, was no longer in power. So the country was not run by the king. And what they then created was a parliament, which part means parley, which is speak, meant mind speak. This then rolled into government. Govern, control, meant mind. So you've got mind speak and mind control. Sound familiar? But that particular charter only spoke about the freemen. But the majority of the people were not freemen, they were peasants. And no monarch of England ever had unrestricted or absolute control after that. And so essentially the Magna Carta was another power play. The kings were removed and replaced by the families, the bloodline families, the 301 families listed on the document. It was a power play. They wanted to control all within the families. This is how long it's been going on. That's 804 years ago. Because the freemen were all the earls and barons and nobles, in other words, the nobility families. They didn't want to be ruled by kings. Some kings were good and some were not. They wanted to take over, and that's what happened. But the reality is, every person on this planet is a monarch. Not just the royalty. That's what that took away. So the Magna Carta stripped the peasants of all the rights, in essence, as it only applied to the freemen, the families. And then we had mentioned about the IRA, which is the allegedly what most people think the Irish Republican Army, and they protect the Southern Irish people. Not correct. And most people who are familiar in Europe, and particularly in Britain and Ireland, were aware of the bombing campaign in the UK and think that's when the IRA started in the 1970s. But you need to think again. Their history, remember, always repeats itself. On November the 23rd, 1867, three Fenians, William Philip Allen, Michael O'Brien and Michael Larkin, known as the Manchester Martyrs, were executed in Salford for their attack on a police van to release Fenians, as they were called back then, which Fenians now is a derogatory term for Catholics, believe it or not. And they were held captive earlier that year. On December the 13th, 1867, the Fenians exploded a bomb in an attempt to free one of their members being held on remand in Clerkenwell Prison in London. The explosion damaged nearby houses, killed 12 and caused 120 injuries. And you thought the bombs were 1970s. Try 1860. As it turns out, none of the prisoners escaped. And it wasn't just in Britain and Ireland. Patrick J. Whelan was hanged in Ottawa for the assassination of an Irish-Canadian politician, Thomas D'Arcy McGee, in 1868. Then there was a mention of Sinn Féin, who were like the political group with that stems out of the IRA, or have allegiance with the IRA. And then you've got Gerry Adams and Martin McGuinness, who were both prominent Sinn Féin and leaders of the IRA, except both of them were working for the system, not the Irish people. Adams is Knights of Malta, and McGuinness wears the badge of Hibernian, the secret handshake society, the system. And then there's the Battle of the Boyne in the 1600s. Even to this day, the Protestants are celebrating on July the 12th of William of Orange defeating the Irish people. Still celebrating something that took place 400 years ago. It's beyond stupid. It's more beyond stupid when you realise what you're actually celebrating. William of Orange was not British, but Dutch. He was made King of England for his endeavours, and this shows what these people will do over a prolonged period of time, playing the same games over and over again. And they sometimes even use the same characters, despite the gap in time. Take note of that. The sleight of hand is a common theme. The Order loves nothing more than watching us all go down blind alleys. They throw in a narrative and a direction they wish people to go, and largely every single time we've followed it. But some can see beyond the illusion and the sleight of hand and are now pulling back the curtain on their fake theatre productions. Like that guy said, Like I said, he had a lot of really interesting and good knowledge. But the majority of Irish, Southern Irish, believe that the Brits and the Queen is the source of all their ills. Now, neither of those have covered themselves in any glory, that we do know. But both are the fall guys for this particular narrative. Like I said, the Battle of the Boyne was not done by the Brits, but actually the Dutch royal house groups, family, and in particular the House of Orange. And here we are 400 years later, the Protestants, I said that the right way, not Protestants, they're actually protesting. The fact that they're still celebrating and marching down Catholic roads and rubbing it in their faces from something that took place 400 years ago is beyond stupid. When A, part of the system of control against us, and B, that person was from Holland, not the UK. Think different is the key. As for the Catholics, and your fight is again beyond stupid. If you don't bother to learn your own history, once you learn that the IRA, Sinn Féin, the Fenians were never fighting for you, but were fighting for the system to eliminate you and your history, like the real name of Ireland is Scotia. Why? Go and check who's buried in Trawley Bay. Queen of Scotia. The real name's not Ireland or Eire, it's Scotia. And Ireland and its whole history has been distorted to fit a certain narrative, and in particular the narrative of the Roman Catholic Church. They're the ones who ordered the Battle of the Boyne. The Dutch just carried it out. That's not to say some of the British families were not involved either, but it was all the houses, the families, House of Bavaria, House of Orange, etc., etc. But the Roman Catholic Church you all worship have destroyed every aspect of your life, every day of your life. You've chosen to ignore their crimes, which, funny enough, unlike the Catholics of the 1500s, who were protesting against the very same church that tramples all over you on a daily basis, including your history and people, which later morphed into a religion called Protestantism. You are fighting your own people. Do you not realise that? You've all been played, North or South, Catholic or Protestant. You're all the same people. Now, do you carry on hating your own people and play the program system game, or do you use your brains you were given and realise the problem is not politicians? You give them far too much credit than they deserve. The problem is not North or South, Catholic or Protestant. The problem is you. All of you. The time to correct it is now. Try coming together as people, not as Irish, not as Catholic, not as Protestant, not as supporters of Dutch kings or Pope worshippers, just people. That's all it takes. When the Belfast child sings again, and the Dublin child, and many other places in Ireland, whole history, like America, complete and utter lie. You got one side blaming the wrong people and worshipping a royal family line, and the other in support of a criminal church, and don't realise that the Protestants are really Catholics. Oops. Going forward, we are going to have to think a lot better than we are. We just are. Like the Palestinians and Israel people who are working under extreme duress to try and engineer peace between them. There's lots going on in North and South Ireland also, where communities are coming together, but old habits die hard, and they believe what the system has fed them. But the system has fed them bullshit since the day the written word came out, because they wrote all the books. Thankfully, this show and many others are now rewriting them. But it's no use me telling you your real history unless the people of that country are going to stand up and support the people. Not as a Catholic or a Protestant, or I'm Southern Ireland or I'm Northern Ireland, just people. That's all we are at the end of the day, people. Not Americans, not Brits, not Irish, not this, that and the other. People. And when we all realise that, we're all going to have a much better world. A couple of things to ponder on. There's been a common theme around the world about Chinese elders. I'll try not to swear in this part. I think I've sworn enough in this show, more than I normally do. But despite no one being able to name any of them, no one appears to know who exactly these fabled elderly gentlemen are. But the common consensus is they are reverent, wisdom-based and benevolent, and how they all want to save the world. But where were these same fantastic elders when Pol Pot and Chairman Mao, who was Kuomintang, I might add, when those two were committing genocide in their own country and the neighbouring one? Where were these oh-so-nice elders then? Benevolent, my ass. Question to ponder. If the Cold War was all about the rise of communism, why wasn't China a Cold War enemy as well? Given their population is 10 times that of Russia, you would think they would be part of the Cold War, would you not? One of life's great mysteries, it seems. Or the real truth, the Cold War was all bullshittery. I'm probably not going to have time to read that piece. I'll save that piece for next week. It's about EU corruption. But we've got an update on the Yellow Vests Act 11, the 11th week of protest. And the SFP, the Syndicate of French Police, estimates the number of participants in the Yellow Vest protest now at 330,000. This includes evening manifestations and yellow vests at roundabouts, blocking the traffic, blocking the system. And they estimated the pro-Macron demonstration at 3,500, boosted by the media to 10,500. Well, they lie. That's what they do. So the pro-Macron is about 1% of the yellow vests protesters currently, And apart from the demonstrations, protesters also are blocking traffic, destroyed speeding cameras and toll gates at the highway. They also organised a bank run, destroyed ATM machines, and there are thousands of manifestations taking place now for the last 11 weeks. Now the pressure on the police increases. On top of the daytime demonstrations, the Yellow Vests also organised the Yellow Night to wear out the police. And the police has to work 16-hour working days or more now when mobilised for all the events, often on top of a 5-day full-time working week. And more of the police officers are calling in sick. They are harassed by the authorities and pressured to go back to work. And last week, the 11th police officer committed suicide since the beginning of this year. You see more and more cops without uniform, so it looks like they are recruiting more mercenaries, which is correct, 100%. Police violence. The demonstrations last Saturday started peacefully. Unfortunately, some demonstrations in the big cities again turned out into a violent clash between the police and the protesters. And the scene, as can be seen in the many video clips shared on Twitter and YouTube, looks more like a war zone and a massacre than a democratic Western nation. On Saturday, January the 26th, one of the figureheads of the Yellow Vest movement, Jerome Rodriguez, was also injured, and he probably has lost his right eye. Now the scene was filmed, and there are reasons to believe it was a deliberate attack on one of the main figureheads of the Yellow Vest movement. A hand grenade, of all things, police don't carry hand grenades, and a flashball gun was fired at him at the same time. Just before the attack, someone screamed, "Lower your gun, do not point it at the head." 3 seconds later, Jerome was hit, and he's likely to lose his eye. Now, internal police investigators have launched an inquiry, as has the Paris prosecutor. More than 80 similar inquiries have been launched following serious injuries or legal complaints during the Yellow Vest protests. Now, the violence has seemed to escalate. The mercenaries, of which the police claim belong to La BAC, seem to get orders to kill. And there are several photos and a video that show these mercenaries and police officers with a hammer as a weapon. So, taking stock after 11 weeks, at least 6,000 people have been arrested. It's not clear how many, as many are still in custody. 13 people have died. 1,100 casualties among police, 2,200 casualties among protesters, 104 severely wounded, amputees, brain injuries, organ failure, permanent handicap. 2 are in coma, and at least 18 people have lost an eye, and at least 4 people have lost a hand, and 11 police officers have committed suicide. Now, last week, President Macron signed the ancient treaty with Angela Merkel, paving the way for a European army. This is how they can funnel more funds to NATO, as the European army is already in place, the Rothschilds' private army known as NATO, deep state clowns. And in the past few weeks, a number of European tanks with a European flag instead of a French flag have been spotted on the streets of France. What do the Yellow Vests want? Well, the majority of the movement is realising that a few tokens like temporary tax cuts is not going to solve their problems. They are becoming more and more aware of the repressive system that is operating on behalf of an elite, and not the majority of the people, which is a good sign. Since the Yellow Vests movement, the system is showing its real face. And for those of you who have seen the videos, oh boy, they have. What I I'm going to say is, whilst I never condone violence, I've watched some of them fighting back. So kudos to the French people. Us Brits are never, or historically not fond of French people. We have a bit of a rivalry, but kudos to them. So therefore they're ready to embrace a real solution, and one of the ideas that the majority supports is the RIC, referendum initiative by the citizens. Now, RIC would reform the political system and change it from a representative system to a participants system. People will have a direct say in the legislation and no longer have to depend on representatives. In brief, they will be able to initiate a referendum, votes are binding, propose legislation, able to change the constitution, abolish existing laws, and repeal of representatives. These reform measures would give the people the power back. It would also give them the opportunity to exit Europe, known as Frexit. Needless to say, the ruling elite does not want this implemented, and they came up with a ruse to divide the movement and control the opposition by forming a new political party, Gilets Jaunes, Yellow Vest, RIC, not RIC as abbreviation of Referendum Initiative by the Citizens, but Règlement d'Initiative Citoyen, which means something like Rally of the Initiative by the Citizens. This is what they do. Just a sleight of hand again. It's a common theme. We've heard it enough in tonight's show. They just switch it around a bit. This political party will run for the up-and-coming European elections this spring, and the party has 10 candidates. Well, they got them very quick, didn't they? That should give people a clue. And one of the candidates is Marc Doyer, an avid supporter of Macron in December last year. This initiative reeks like a controlled opposition, because it is. And it's a common theme that a second organisation is founded that is a copy of a successful yet threatening grassroots movement. It's a bit like the Irish story, and the Protestants morphed into a religion. It's all sleight of hand. And for example of this taking place previously, the ITNJ, which is Robert David Steele, Stone and other goons, as a copy of the ITCCS, which is Kevin Annett and his fairly groundbreaking stuff that he's done, right on the ground, spoken to all the people in Canada who have suffered the most horrendous abuse, and seen all their friends die. Just shut them up. ITNJ is fake. They'll hear the stories and they're going to whitewash it, because Robert David Steele is not ex-CIA, he is CIA. This copy is a mirrored version of the original, often with opposite objectives. This copy organisation seems to have funding in a short space of time, just like ITNJ, has access to resources and gets lots of positive media coverage. In other words, they're doing a spin. That in itself is an achievement for the French people, that they've got to invest that time and money to provide a spin that quickly. I told you we had the power. And the mainstream media propaganda has up until now mostly ignored or downplayed the police violence against the Yellow Vests, as well as ignored their version of RIC. But now the mainstream media suddenly promotes the new political party, Yellow Vests RIC, and this is highly suspicious. Now, as I said, I've watched some of the videos of violence in France, and I'm going to say it again, kudos for the French people for fighting back against the cops. Now, Regular listeners will know I do not condone violence per se. But under such provocation that those people went through, people have the right to defend themselves from such brutal tactics used by those in Navy uniforms. Some cops got back and more what they have been dishing out on a regular basis. I warned of all this back in 2014. Cops would be in big trouble once the police rose up. I even invited an ex-cop onto the show who had been on PBS, except he declined. But the world over has watched these glorified thugs intimidate, shoot at, maim and kill people day after day for something as trivial as a traffic offence, never mind a protesting movement. And it was only a matter of time before people said enough is enough. Cops will suffer increasing injuries and deaths at the hands of the public. Why? Because they are the first line of defence to protect the criminal elite. Cops need to tell the criminal elite to go and do their own dirty work and face the public, not risk their lives, risk injuries, risk committing suicide. And it's time for the cops to step down in various places of discord. And if they do, I hope the public support them. I hope the public then don't abuse the situation by looting and going on crime sprees like what happened in Brazil when the cops went on strike there last year. This type of behaviour is why they feel we need a control system. If we all acted responsibly, there's no need for it. And both have a responsibility to come together, the police and the protesters. But for the cops, you lot are in big trouble. Big, big trouble. Hiding behind your shields, your weaponry, arrogance and thuggery to protect a system that doesn't give a flying shit about you or your family. Like everyone else, they'll throw you under the bus. So to the cops in France and globally, ask yourselves, what am I actually protecting here? Why have I been sent to Israeli military training to do a police job? Why am I being asked to spray chemicals in people's eyes? Why am I being asked to maim and kill people who are protesting about life? Why have all police been given mind control radios? All of you. Oops. Why am I protecting something that is damaging my own friends and family? Why am I attacking my own people? It's time, like the generals, for you all to down tools and embrace the protesters. They will welcome you. We all want the same things deep down. So why risk your life for a system that crushes us all? Hashtag cops walk away. Or better still, keep your weaponry and join the protesters. Hashtag cops fight the system. Maybe this is what the bureaucrats fear and why they want an EU army. A collection of paid mercenary thugs. Some of those groups we will name after this. A few new names for you all to take note of and go and do your research with regards to mercenary-styled so-called security groups. Now, the first one you will be familiar with, or most of you will anyway. Academy, spelt with an I on the end, not a Y, as that's the new name of the Eric Prince Blackwater Group. Here's some others that you may not be familiar with. Triple Canopy, Omniplex, Constellis, AMK9, Olive Group, Centera, Edinburgh International, THI, and Strategic Social Security. Take note of them. They're some of the goons that are really running countries and governments. Maybe I'll leave that. Things are happening on an increasing basis in our lives now. Attacks by family members, partners leaving, discord in your own circles. Unless things make sense in the world, is 1, a test of your resolve, 2, wheat and chaff disconnection evidenced, and 3, the two worlds getting wider. Why are you noticing it, and what is your reactions? Essentially, your frequency level has changed. You are not in their paradigm anymore. And we did warn all of the above would take place as far back as 2015, and warn further in certain aspects in the subsequent years since. Don't fear it. Don't react to it. Just embrace where you are and where you're at. Now, the final piece for tonight is about the PSI field. For those new, it's like your aura. But imagine your PSI field is like an item of clothing. You all love that old, worn-out jacket and refuse to replace it. But it's not the jacket you hold on to, it's the frequency of it. It's also comfortable, despite the holes, the tears, and being out of shape. You hold onto it till it literally falls off your back. Or the wife bins it on trash day so you can't recover it. I can hear some men sniggering there. Well, the same applies to our PSI field on an individual and collective level. And the question is, how will you fare walking in a 50-mile-an-hour blizzard of snow with that jacket on? Not too well. And the wearer may change jackets. And yet many choose to ignore their own personal jacket and leave holes in it and wander around life in a blizzard of negative frequencies day after day and wonder why life is crap. Now, some will say, well, I can't see it, so it's not real. But no one can see air, but we still breathe it. No one has seen God, Jesus, or Muhammad, but 4.5 billion believe in it. Denying its existence is a frequency-based suicide program. I'll repeat that again. Denying its existence is a frequency-based suicide program. Now imagine inside the jacket is a cup filled with oil, all thick and gooey. And you attempt to clean that cup with water. What happens? All the oil stays and the water skims off. So neither the cup or the item of clothing gets cleansed. It just sits there. Except, unlike the cup or the jacket, ours festers, expands, proliferates, and weighs us down. The cup, which is the inner you, is filled with negative frequencies of anger, frustration, anguish, envy, insecurities, inferiority complex, little me, victim, saviour programs, hurt, pain and traumas. A vicious cocktail of frequencies, none of which is helpful to you in this life or future lives for that matter. A thick, viscous soup that leaves you, in essence, like walking through life in treacle. Molasses for those who are American. So that is what many people have become, a thick soup. And then we come to the garment you wear, known as your PSI field. Again, that is thick in oil, full of holes and tears. You try to wash it and it rolls off. It's too greasy or slippery, or it falls in the hole. So you have to break it down to clean that field also. A PSI field full of holes is an entrance point for the astral level infections, the dark spirits, and the extinct critters. For those new, cancer comes from an astral level infection, not the physical level. If you get cancer, you had a hole in your PSI field. Your field is filled with inner trauma and also the angers and frustrations of everyone else in your close environment or those you engage with. And yet people think they can thrive in that environment. You think your inner light can shine like a beacon in that environment. Nope. The oil is that thick, not enough of your inner light penetrates. Too many have become a walking stream of negative, lower level frequencies. Your PSI field is connected to other lower level frequencies. Like attracts like. And essentially you become a walking Wi-Fi delivery system of negative frequencies, and you drag them through your lives day after day. At some point, all of you will have had a fallout with someone, be it vocal or by violence, and you no longer speak to that person and you think that that is that. Nope. You have a tentacle or a cord still connected with that frequency or person because you never let it go. Now imagine all the other tentacles you have with all the other people you have had bad interactions with. You'll resemble looking something like a villain trapped by Spider-Man in a movie, meshed in a negative web that you may perceive as not your doing, but a differing percentage of that interaction was down to you and your reactions to it. And this is the essence of why your shadow and inner work is the most important thing you can do. You repeat behaviours and bad scenarios in your life because you didn't address the previous ones. And I guess it's time to cut some cords, is it not? Every sexual intercourse encounter you have had also creates a cord. So whilst you thought it was fun at the time, you all notched up all these sexual encounters, perhaps now it was not the best interaction for you overall, was it? Now I can imagine some thinking back now of the ones they've slept with and going, holy F, Thomas, I really didn't want to hear that. Well, I said you will hear what you need to know, not what you want to know. But that sexual cord lasts for 7 years, whether you're with that person or not. 7 years from the last interaction. The global PSI field is also a thick treacle, mired in discord, disconnection, distortions and lies. And your PSI field you were is based on lies and the masking of lies that you embrace. Because it is, or was, not the real you, was it? We've all worn masks to cover our own perceived weaknesses, and a dropping of the mask leaves the real you. If you don't like the real you, or not enough of the real you is being shown, that's up to you to correct it. As you empty your inner cup, more of the real you comes out, not the negative frequencies we've all held on to. We have accepted the narrative that has been fed to us, and it became part of our field, like earlier, the Irish history, the American history, what's going on in South America, what's really the truth about the Catholic Church, etc., etc. We've all been fed the narrative, and it became part of our field, like the old worn-out jacket. We've held onto it for far too long. But there's a tiny light inside of all of you that is chirping away, going, this field, this life, and your whole reality is BS. The whole field holds all of the lies we've been fed on and in all aspects of life. The field, in essence, is like an AI copy of illusion. It's a mask. We are not the Phantom of the Opera, men or women. We are a shining beacon. So why do we all dull that light with bullshittery and fakery? As your inner light gets bigger, and as you cut more of your cords via the inner work, you reach a tipping point where the light shines more than the oily dark shadows, and it's screaming, get out of this field. This is your knowledge-based awakening, and suddenly things start to make more sense, because the fog is lifted and your inner and outer vision is suddenly a whole lot clearer. Reality just walked in your door and essentially slapped you out of your self-induced coma. No more back in the permanent sleeper pods for you. You can't undo what you have learned and gone back, or go back. Because that you no longer exists. Why? Because you're no longer in that field or frequency anymore. And finally in your life, you begin to grow. Despite all your cords, disconnections, traumas, strife, pain, and consuming volumes of negative frequencies, consume the lies, and wearing proudly and stubbornly your masks of illusion, and having slept for vast parts of your life, had clever manipulators pulling strings in the background, walking through life in a vast vat of treacle, you all came out the other side, and you're all shining your beacons of light as only an organic human can. Give yourselves all a pat on the back for even getting this far. You're still waiting for the event? You were the event. This has been the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams. Bye for now.